On April 20th, 1969, a photograph was taken that changed everything. A group of young black students emerged from an occupied building, carrying rifles and shotguns, bandoliers of ammunition draped across their shoulders. The photo won the Pulitzer Prize. But what America saw was only the final image. What America didn't know was that those weapons weren't the reason for the occupation. They were the response to an attack. And what came after this photo would transform higher education forever. It began with a burning cross. On April 18, 1969, at 3 a.m., Cornell University police discovered a burning cross on the lawn of Wari House, a dormitory for African-American women. According to campus records, 11 fire alarms rang out across Cornell that morning. The message was unmistakable. Black women on this campus were not safe. The next day, members of the Afro-American Society made a decision. They would occupy Willard Straight Hall, Cornell's student union, to force the university to confront what they'd been ignored for years: systemic racism, a biased judicial system, and a curriculum that had no place for African-American studies. According to documented accounts, about 80 black students entered the building early that morning during Parents' Weekend. They evicted visiting parents, mostly white families there to celebrate their children's education. By 9:40 a.m., that's when white members of the Delta Upsilon fraternity decided to take the building back by force. According to eyewitnesses, they physically attacked the black students in the Ivy Room. The attack failed. The white students were ejected, but the message was clear. This university would not tolerate black demands for equality. That's when the weapons came in. Black students, understanding they might face another attack, armed themselves in self-defense. According to historical records, they smuggled rifles and shotguns into the occupied building. White students from Students for a Democratic Society formed a protective ring around the Strait to show solidarity, about 50 SDS members standing guard. Within hours, according to police accounts, officers from Rochester, Syracuse, and across New York State began converging on the campus. They positioned themselves to storm the building. According to a rookie police officer who was there, George Tabor, one of them recalled years later, "It would have been just absolutely terrible. It could have made Kent State and Jackson State look like the teddy bear's picnic." But Cornell President James Perkins made a different choice. He negotiated. He listened. He opened dialogue rather than calling for violence. According to accounts from the time, Perkins chose communication over confrontation. On April 20th, after 36 hours, a deal was struck. The students would leave the building. Cornell would respond to their demands. What came next was extraordinary. The university established the Africana Studies and Research Center, an autonomous program with black scholars in charge of its own destiny. According to the Cornell administration's own records, only days before the takeover, they'd approved $240,000 for a black studies program. But it was the takeover that made them move with urgency. It transformed an administrative initiative into a movement. It transformed a program into a center. It transformed what could be studied at Cornell forever. But the institutional changes went deeper. According to documented records, the takeover led to the formation of a university senate where students had real power. The board of trustees was restructured to include student representation. The judicial system was reformed. According to historical accounts, the university established Ujamaa Residential College in 1971 for black students. Later came Aquay Con for Native American students. Then the Latino Living Center. These weren't just programs. They were validation. They were recognition that entire histories had been erased. Cornell President James Perkins resigned at the end of that semester. Not because he was forced out immediately, but because the pressure was immense. Faculty members opposed the agreement. 100 professors voted to condemn it. Economist Thomas Sowell and others attacked the protest for what they called affirmative action admissions. Vice President Spiro Agnew used it in speeches to attack the growing influence of the left on campuses. A year later, the Africana Center was destroyed in an arson attack, a fire that many believed was racially motivated, an attempt to erase what had been won. Yet what emerged from Willard Straight Hall on April 20th was not just a photograph. It was proof that black students, unified and unafraid, could force a major American university to transform. Within decades, that transformation spread across higher education. Women's studies, Latino studies, Asian American studies, LGBTQ centers, disability studies. All of these emerged from the pathway that black students at Cornell opened in 1969. According to historians, entire scholarly fields that had been ignored for centuries suddenly had institutional legitimacy. One of the occupation's leaders was Tom Jones. Years later, he established the James A. Perkins Prize for Interracial Understanding, named after the president he'd pressured, acknowledging that even in disagreement, Perkins had chosen dialogue over violence. That's what makes this story powerful. Black students forced change. The university responded. And 4 decades later, even those who'd opposed it came to understand what had happened. Comment below. What would you have done in that moment? Standing in Willard Straight Hall, facing a mob, understanding that the system was designed to silence you. Subscribe to Ika Mefuna History TV because this is how change happens. Not from above, but from below, from students willing to risk everything for transformation. What other untold stories of student resistance do you want us to uncover? Tell us in the comments. Because the guns in that photograph weren't the story. The story was what those students refused to accept, and what they forced America to become.